Hello, this is Jason. I was requested to show a little bit about what I'm doing while I am leading worship on stage in the sanctuary. Jake asked if I could show off a little bit of my gear, and Jake, thank you for the suggestion, and I'll do just that. Just to do a little bit of house cleaning here, some of my previous videos, I was talking about this little guy right up here. It is a hanger for 5 instruments. I've had that for quite some time. It has worked quite well. And as you can see, I got 2 of them. So as you can see back here, I made sure that these things are doing wonderful. It's kind of in front of this window, but you can still see through. It's done very well for me. So there's my house cleaning. And then Jake, once again, thank you for the suggestion. And without further ado, I'm going to flip this around and we are going to start looking at my box. So as you can see, this is my rig. This is the setup that I like to call the bug out box. Part of what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to first talk about what the enclosure is, some of the other hardware pieces that I have, and then I'll start looking at things that are up above, down below. As you can see, I've got a little pull out here that has all my guitar effects. And then we'll talk a little bit about what I've got going on with the computer. So let me start by showing off this box here. SKB makes this, and it is a mixer rack on the top, and it has 4 units down below. They make them in 2, 4, and 6, but I opted with the 4 because I didn't think I needed that much. And as you can see, I still have this one extra bank that I have set aside for future growth, and that will come in handy for me here, okay? So this up here, SKB, I believe, also makes this. These are just shelves. This is a shelving unit that you'd otherwise put on the top here, and they made it specifically for this. And the cool thing about these shelves is that they're tilted in such a way that it levels off with the box interiorly. And as you can see, I have this one up here, and then hidden, there's another one right here. So this one kind of goes in and goes back, and then this one overlaps and comes up over the front. So I can put a few pedals up here. I can put a little MIDI controller here. I've got my wireless for my guitar here. And then now I have room to put all of my computer work right up on top, which is great. Now, another cool thing about this box, and I am going to try to not show off my portly 40-year-old self as much as possible. I'll save you the bulge. Make sure that's in frame for you. Look at that. That's great. So now, if you take a peek here, I had to put my power supply way down here at the bottom just because there are some rack mounts in the back here. There's also 4 units here. They don't quite match up with what they have in the front. I don't know if that's a feature or if I just made it work that way. So I've got a power supply down here at the bottom, and then I have all my I/O here. Now, with the last 2 channels way down there, I have my in-ears coming from the house, and then I have my microphone. So I have vocals and guitar running in and out of this thing. For the Ableton side, what I have is I've got a click track going, I've got a bass track going, I have extra backing tracks back here, I have stereo for my guitar, and then I have 4 units for vocals. So I have my vocal coming out, and then I have background vocals upon background vocals, and I'll show you a little more about what that is there. So there's the back of it, and let's pull it on to the front. Oh, look at that, everybody. My virus protection has expired. Just get that out of here. Okay, I'm going to pick y'all up. Sorry in advance, anybody's motion sick. And here we go. Okay, I'm making sure that I can hold this thing. All right, so let's start off with the top here. Now, this is a Line 6 wireless set, and it's got a little dongle. I just don't have it sitting right now. But I use that along with an extra, I think it's about a 3-foot cable extension, so I can put this dongle into my pocket while I'm playing. Then I can swap out as necessary while I've got my guitars there. Okay, this is all of my vocal processing, and you can see TC Helicon makes both of these. This is Critical Mass, and this is a crowd vocal effect. And then this one here is the Harmony GXT, which will handle 2 harmonies for me, and then this also does my autocorrect for my vocals. And Jake, I'm not going to give away all of his little secrets and whatnot, but he's got a really good tutorial on the worship sessions that he has for all of us. I have gone into it. It's been a fountain of knowledge, and that's kind of how everything has come here. So anyways, like I said before, this thing handles some harmonies, and then it also handles my vocal corrected or auto-tuned, as it were, voice that goes to the front of the house. Okay, and let's see here. My OKs are the punctuation at the end of each paragraph. So if you're following along to the script and you need to turn the page, that's the magical chime that you need. Now, if you take a peek here, I've got this Korg Nano Control 2, and what I've been using this for is to take care, and you can kind of see if I get right in here, click, pad, bass, acoustic, the background music, harmonies, crowd, and delay. So these are the main things that I have to manually override. Say, for example, something is going on and I need to back out the click track. Well, I have this MIDI control to where I can take my click and take it out altogether, or I can mute it right away. As you can see, when this mute turns on, I can do that with the computer. And if I'm doing this little function here, as I'm doing that, you can see on the computer that I have that little click track going off and on. And so that happens across the board for all of these. Now, one of the things that I've been doing is I've been using all of these channels as part of the... in Pro Tools, they call it aux channels. In Ableton, they call them returns. So all of these return tracks, I have all of my music and all of my clicks and all my cues and everything. They all go to return channels. So I end up having about 8 or 9 return channels sitting in front of me that I'm able to control as I need to. And then, of course, as you can see where I have Ableton, you can see where all my main tracks are up at the top. And down below, I've got all of the returns. And so that's how I control everything. And you can also see that I have a few pre versus post. And I'm sure there's going to be a tutorial in the worship master classes in there that you can kind of take a peek and see what's going on there. Now, for this, I kind of want to sit down and talk about this. You guys, we're going to have to rap a little bit about my I.O., and then we'll talk about my guitar pedals. So right now, I've been working with the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20. You can't really see the 18. It's just getting kind of washed out. Let me see if I can get that. There it is. Very fuzzy for everybody. All right. This is the first generation of it, and I picked it up for a relatively low price. And this supplies me with 2 inputs in the front, 6 inputs in the back, and then it has 10 inputs that go out from the back side of it. And then I can double this up and get another one, which is going to be a future purchase, so that I have double that amount of inputs. So then I end up having 16 inputs and then 20 outputs, which is, I believe that's kind of how that happened there, the 18i20. And then there's a 2 SPDIF in the back that you can use for more inputs. So that's what this little guy is here. Now, one of the cool things about this is that this allows me to hand individual tracks to the front of house when we're doing worship. So I have, just as you saw the XLRs in the back, I've got a dedicated click track that just goes to our ears, doesn't go front of house. But then I have a dedicated bass track that goes into the ears as we want to, but then it also goes to the house and so forth. You know, and so I've got everything that's in the back there that very much so mimics what I have going into this I.O. here. All right. Or should I say, okay. And here is the pièce de résistance. This is the very small amount of effects that I end up using with my guitar. Now, this little guy here, I have as a side chain for boost. So when I am playing, I can have this automated through Ableton when there's a solo to be played. So rather than me having to sit there and do one of these things with my feet, y'all know this dance, right? You guys know that dance. So I have Ableton doing this for me instead. So this isn't always on. However, this channel is muted through Ableton and activated, deactivated only when I need to use that for the solos, as it were. As we're looking here, I'm using this power supply by Seox or Chox, however you like to calling that. It's called the Big John. It's got a few 9 volts, got a few 12 volts. It's got some good amperage that goes through it, and this supplies power to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if you look back here, I've got 2 more pedals sitting here, 6, 7. And I do believe I've got a little more room for 1 more if I bring it in. So that's kind of the power supply for all this thing here. My signal for my guitar starts up here, comes in here, comes straight into the harmonizer because that's what was recommended. And I am going to experiment to see if I can get my my dry vocals coming from Ableton to come straight into here. That way, if I need to channel something different, for example, if I need to use a piano track in Ableton to come into this thing to help with harmonies because I'm not playing the guitar during that part in time or whatever the case may be, I'm going to sit there and experiment with that. But I still need a guitar source to go into this pedal. It is to say that this pedal can be kind of a one-stop shop for a vocalist with a guitar. There's so many reviews and tutorials on this on YouTube. If you are interested in looking at something like this, I definitely recommend checking it out. This, however, there's not too much online about it. I feel as though whoever has done whatever with this online, I think there should be some more about it. So stick around, stay tuned. I might actually do a demo of myself on this. Here's hoping. But for now, that's what's going on here. So my signal, sorry, sidetrack here. Signal's coming in from here, going through the harmonizer, and then my signal comes all the way down here. And right back here, this is a JHS splitter and buffer. So this has a signal that goes straight into this pedal here. But then this little guy, again, it's a splitter. This little guy goes all the way right to here. So now this is getting inputted as a direct into my computer, and I can kind of do a whole bunch of different things with it. Primarily, I use that to activate and deactivate the side chain that this is attached to. Because as soon as I do this in and out, and this little signal gets activated, so this is playing, now the freak out comes back in right here to this little summer. And this summer has the splitter going directly into it, and then this now goes in right here. I think I kind of confused myself of my own personal routing when I said where the splitter was going and then where the summer was going. So my signal gets split, and then it comes back in here, and then I have a side chain that can be muted and unmuted with the freak out at the end of it, so that I get this little extra boost bump of my guitar signal. And then of course this thing does like these pretty cool frequencies, so that if you let something ring out, it kind of does that feedback like you'd get from an amplifier. I really like it a lot. So everything comes back into this Unit 67 by Drybell. This little guy's got a compressor built into it. This is a boost here. This is a mid-range boost, very similar to the Range Master. If you're familiar with any of those little bits and jargons, that's what that does. Otherwise, I'd highly recommend you kind of do a little research on that, because this Range Master sound is amazing. A little bit of EQ in here, and then this this compressor is very reminiscent of the 1167, hence the name Unit 67. 1167 is a well-renowned compression that is on racks all over the place in professional studios. So they made this into a fun little guitar pedal. A lot of what I do, and I'll get real into this thing, is I use this dial to smooth out all of my different volumes for my guitars. So say I'm here for the majority of one of my, I'll say a Telecaster. Well, then I've got a Stratocaster that's not as loud, so I'll bring this up a notch and even it out. Or if I've got something that's got humbuckers, I'll pull it all the way back here. But this is my first line of defense when it comes to overall volume, and that's just kind of how I run this little pedal here. So I find this to be a very, very good source of keeping volume and tone kind of at its utmost and as across the board as possible. So if there's something that you can find that kind of does something similar to this, I would highly recommend finding something you can dial in. And then, of course, you can always put a little bit of blue tape. I've got blue tape on just about everything here. Throw some blue tape on here, label off a few of your guitars so that you know who's got what sound and where. So there's that. Now, this little guy is a Benson preamp, and this gives me a little bit of dirt if I want it, and I've got a little more EQ in here with my treble and bass towards the back here, as you can see, and it's got a volume and drive here as well, so I can dial this in to give myself more dirt if I want, or I can clean things up if I want. And then, of course, I can boost highs and lows here, very similar to what I can do here, high and low. And then this Range Master is a bit of a mid, if you want to call that high, low, and mid here. So it's just a little extra color and contouring that I can do. I can also use this to push the Benson preamp to get it a little dirtier if I want to. And then also, because this is going to end up being hit in addition signal-wise into this whole circuit when solos are happening. So this also gives an extra push for solos. So it does a pretty good job doing all these things. So after the Benson, I'm coming into a Hall of Fame. This is going to be soon replaced by a GFI Specular Tempest, which is coming in the mail from Russia right now. And this is just serving as giving my guitar a little bit of spring reverb. I'm not doing much with it at all. This is not being utilized to its full potential. It's being a very light spring reverb, and I feel bad having it in here because you can mash on this little button here and get extra effects while you're playing, but that would need to be at the feet, and once again, this little song and dance I've been trying to avoid. So here it is. It's in here instead. It's giving just a little bit of light spring, and that's what I like. Now this little guy here, the GFI Cab Zeus, this is a stereo cab simulator. So I'm running direct into our front of house, and this is what I'm using. And this has a whole bunch of different emulations. You could do just about anything with this, and it's great. It's really good for being in the box playing. Now, I could say that this and this, basically this whole setup here can be replaced by using one of those Line 6 Helix stomps. And they're very small, and they do really well, and I actually was thinking about that for quite some time. However, I ended up making my own little personal rendition of what one of those Helix stomps would be, because I've got all my compression and boost towards the front. This is considered a preamp. Then I'd have this almost as an effects loop for my guitars, and then everything comes out of the cabinet. So really everything that I have set up here, I've primarily tried to make it as much of a guitar cabinet setup as possible. I mean, obviously we're using this as kind of like a extra boost pedal, and then this is primarily an always on in front of a preamp. So if you think of this being just a boost switch, and this always on compression and boost, just to give you a little extra flavor, preamp, effects loop, and then your power section for your cabinets, it's really nothing different. I mean, as fancy as I'm getting with everything here, this isn't much of a stretch for thinking outside or inside of a box, as it were. So this little guy I kind of dial in as we're going along. I kind of have it set up to where it sits maybe about like so when I'm playing. So that way, if I need to switch from acoustic to an electric, this little guy here gets controlled by MIDI to be bypassed. However, I want to turn this little guy off, just because this extra bit of preamp adds some just weird colors to an acoustic guitar that I don't need. This thing sounds amazing on an acoustic guitar, by the way. So I can't recommend this pedal enough. I am really, really happy with this. But this little guy kind of gets turned on and off depending if I'm playing an electric or not. And then this little guy gets controlled via MIDI from Ableton, excuse me. And this gets bypassed as things go along. Just to show you that this little guy has, you can see that there's 4 red lights, and then they'll turn green. Oh, that's the bypass. So there's 4 green, 4 red, and then a bypass. I've always been using this setting and the bypass, and for now that's been good. I'll probably tear into the internal workings. You can hook this up via USB and really just recreate all of your cabs. I know that Benson makes a full cab setup. It's called the Benson Chimera, I believe is the name of it. And so I really want to try to emulate that. I really thought that was a cool sounding amplifier setup. So I think I can do that. I could probably make like a nice Roland Jazz chorus emulator out of this thing here. I'm sure I can do any Fender twin reverb just so I don't have to carry, you know, the 500-pound twin reverb to and from, that I can just use this instead. But that's all of my stuff in a nutshell. I park that thing back in, throw some lids on this, and I'm good to go. A few little extra things I'll point out is you can see all this cabling, crazy cabling. What is that for? There's a blue light. It's scary. All that is I have a plethora of power supplies. So if I need to power more than one thing at a time, I'll do that. This is my 1/4 inch in for my headsets that I'm using for in-ear monitoring. And I believe that's about it. I think that's everything there. I'll throw up another little video and kind of express how I'm doing everything on the computer, just because my hardware, I mean, boy, this is like 22 minutes plus of something. So let me pause this and I'll get into the digging of the computer. All right, good setup. Quick and easy setup. I like that. Okay, so I have one of my songs loaded up here, and the way that our services run is I don't have to put everything in a mass, what's the word am I looking for? I've got no transitions to work with at our church, and it's a little disheartening, but it is what it is. So I can run everything on individual projects or individual songs, as it were, and then come into this section over here and find my next song and keep going that way. Now, obviously, if you mash everything into one master session, song per date or whatever the case may be, you can absolutely get everything dialed in. You're not having to scroll through your 500 songs that you have that you've been using. But that is kind of what I've been doing right now. If you see, and I'm just going to start using this little pen. This thing came with the computer. So this is an Asus Transformer Pro. I believe it's a TF303 is the model, if I remember correctly. Let's do a quick settings about this computer. Hopefully I'm not, no, that's not how to do it. That's not how to do it at all, is it? You guys are like, no, you hit the other thing. Do the, yeah, I don't know. The settings button, I thought it was supposed to be bigger than this. All right, just in case I've got something kind of weird going on here, I'm going to try to find just my, forget it. We'll just say that the TF303 is what it is. And the reason why I got this is, one, it's compact, and two, the thing that I've got with this USB-C, it's a Thunderbolt, so I can sit this down at home, put up a few more monitors in front of me, have an external graphics card, and play some video games on some downtime. So that's why I got this. Any laptop will do. One of the things I did notice about this particular unit is that it had like this real like flimsy chiclet keyboard with the touchpad at the bottom. The The touchpad was weird and faulty, so I just went and grabbed one of these little Microsoft Media keyboards, and it works just fine. I mean, I've got my touchpad here. This little guy's dongle is sitting right up here. It's real close, real quick and easy. I have this Velcroed down so I don't have to set up and tear this down every time. The only things that I set up and tear down in this whole rig is I'll just pull this little hub here. I'll pull my hard drive and I'll grab the computer. Everything else is all wired up and ready to go. So that's 1, 2, 3 pieces that I personally pull away from everything whenever I have to set up and tear down. And it's great. And obviously, you've got all of your ins and outs in the back, and you've got to unplug and plug in and everything. But I try to make that as efficient as possible. So it's not that bad having to set this thing up every morning. Way back in, let's see here, when I first started going through Jake's master classes here, I never played with Ableton. I didn't know how to work with it or anything like that. And I just want to give another shout out to his program. It is absolutely amazing. If you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, I'll try to leave a link in the YouTube file video things, the social medias and such. I would highly recommend you guys take a peek if you haven't already. So as I started with some of Jake's templates, I started making a few things for myself. I mean, obviously, I've taken a lot of what he's already been doing, using the marker so I know where my song is. This tempo things for more or less bringing everything into a master track when you're doing a full set. I'm still keeping that because there might be a chance where I'm going to need to do that with transitions. And I made a click track, if you could see that right there, because I didn't like the click tracks that are already in Ableton. These little things right here, I don't like them. I just don't like them. I like the fact that I can take this click track in here, make my own click up and click down, so you can hear a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or if you're doing any 12, 8, 3, 4, 6, 8, 5, if you're going that crazy. But you're able to manipulate the click track a whole lot better than this little guy here, just by making it your own little click thing. I had to look in to find those tracks. So there's a little digging that you have to do. You can find that out if you go online, go through the Ableton chat or forums, as it were, and you could just say, hey, I want to recreate those clicks. So whatever these clicks are doing up here in this little section, this little button up here, I recreated them and I put them in their own track. I can have them start and stop whenever I want. Now, this unfortunately is all going through my IO down below, the Focusrite. So I can't exactly sit there and play things for you while I'm doing all this. This is a very 101 based video, as it were, because the 202 would probably be me having everything wired into a like a mixer so that I can get all the video synced up with audio and you can hear everything that's going on. But for now, just know that I'm sure you guys realize if you see these little color bars in here or anything like that, there's some audio going on. We'll pretend they're going along while we're playing. As I'm going through this, I'm going to show you what I've been doing for my. I'm going to get you in here just a little more of a dramatic angle. There we go. So as I was saying, I've got my markers, tempo, there's the click. Here's the guide track. So that's saying, I'm going into the verse 2, 3, 4. It's those little bits and pieces there. Those guide tracks I can't recommend highly enough. Either make your own or Jake shows a few spots where you can catch them in the master's classes. So again, I highly recommend listening to some of the stuff that he has to say. It's great, and it's brought me to this point, and I've been doing this for maybe 6 or 7 months now, and I feel like that I'm getting a really good grasp at everything here. So as you're seeing going along, now you can see the click and guide, they're all doing their thing. I've got pads in here. I have them tapered in and out just in case I need to. I've got my bass track in here because just in case I don't have a bass player, I've made those tracks. As you can see, right below that, I have my guitar live and guitar boost. The reason why I have my actual guitar going through here is because I let Ableton run all my delay. As you notice, I didn't have a delay pedal on my guitar board. And the main reason because I want my delay to sync up with whatever metronome I've got going on here. So I just have this sidechain into a track that has the delay. And so now my guitar that's down below has a delay that's coming through here. And then it's going out accordingly. So it's one of those things that you can play with. I think reverb and delay are very easy to come out of the box here because a lot of them deal with a little bit of lag, latency, which makes that characteristic of the sound. We won't go into big tone theory just now, but just know that I feel that it's safe to have a little reverb come out of Ableton. I feel it's fine having the delay come out of Ableton, but everything else that you're trying to do, I try to do as external as possible, just so that you're not bogging down your computer. Even though when you look up here, it shows you how much your computer is eating up with the CPU. I never really go past 15 or 20, but I still like to keep that as low as possible. All right, as we're going along, you can see I have an acoustic guitar track that I've created because I play electric primarily when we're leading worship. Now, if I just so happen to say, oh, I'm going to play acoustic, well, guess what? There's another electric track right there. So I'll just plug and play whatever tracks I need as I need to ad hoc. You can see I've got some piano in here just in case I am doing any type of piano. I don't know if you've seen in the background here, I've got like this crazy Hammond that I'm chomping at the bit to get into tracks. It's a very squeaky wheel. It needs a lot of oil. So that is a fix-it project. It works, but it's just very squeaky. I don't want to put that in any tracks just yet. So moving along here, you can see that I have my Vox Live, my live vocal coming in, along with some harmonies. And then down below, I have the MP3 for reference, and then Pro Presenter if I'm going to start working with slides. That is still pending. That is going to be my 303 class because I've already gone through my 101, and this is kind of my 202 that I've been working on. So the 303, it's not really considered as such, but that's what I'm doing. As I was saying there, so all my vocals are coming through here, and I do have the vocals playing straight through because, again, I'm using that delay channel with my vocals and the harmonies. So whenever I want that to happen, I'm using that with these vocals. Now I can always turn the delay on and off as I need to according to the songs, but I still use that for the main purpose of knowing that my delays are in sync with what the metronome is doing so that I know that it's in sync with the song. And it makes things sound a little more richer and fuller when I'm doing that. And I believe that's everything that I've got here that is right up in front on the tracks. Now, to talk more about all of these returns, I'm going to go ahead and just come right into this next little section here. I'm going to take this little guy and put it away. And I'm going to put this little guy away too. Pay no attention to everything that's down here on this side. These are the regular tracks. And now we're going to take a look at what I'm doing for my returns. As you can see, I almost have all of these set up in such a way that mimic, and I will show you once again, my MIDI controller. As you can see, I almost have all 8 of these mimicking all 8 of these. And forgive me for the atrocious glare of the light. Now you know all my secrets. There it is. That's diffused lighting at its finest and worst at the same time. Give you guys a little bit right there. There we go. Back into place. So as you can see, I've got clicks and cues in one channel, and it's going out of one of the outputs of my I/O. The pads are going to be in just backing tracks because I figure if I'm able to turn these things up and down as I need to, they don't really need their dedicated tracks, as it were. However, I do like having the control, the MIDI control down below with controlling them if I need to. for example, say I wanted to just get into a song right in the middle of it and do just an emphasis of something on the fly. Well, I can take the track, come back a few bars before the cue hits, make sure the band knows that's where we're going, and I could start this whole shindig with the clicks going, and I can fade pads up and have everything else kind of muted or whatever I want to do. I could fade everything in while the click and cue track is telling people this is where we are, this is where we're going. And so I'm kind of being an audio engineer on the fly with the music. And as again, this is something that Jake was kind of showing and expressing, and I took it into my own little level here. So as you can see, I've got the bass track. So it's the same thing. I've got a fader on it. I've got a mute for it. And I just assigned everything through the MIDI. And it took a little finagling, but this thing's starting to dial in really well. And through here, like the acoustic guitar, the electric guitar. This I have set up because I have this acoustic track getting ready to be sent out direct because I'm using it so much. I'd much rather have a dedicated track going straight to front of house. So that's going to be one of my projects over the next few days. The background music, that's basically going to be another electric guitar and the piano. And then here's all my harmonies, Vox, crowd, my crowd vocals, which is the critical mass, and then the harmonies, which is the harmony GXT that I use. And then I have a dedicated delay track. And then this little guy here, I've had to use because when I am in box mixing at home, I don't have my in-ear monitor setup that I have at the church. So I use this little thing as kind of a summing channel. And all I do is this little guy here, I mute it when I'm at church. And then when I'm at home, I turn this on. So now this little guy is going directly to one of the headphone jacks that's down below. So I made this little track here as another return, but this has everybody returning into it so that I can hear it out of the box. And when I get over to the church, I just turn that off and everything's routing appropriately. It's just a little thing that I did that's helping me out. And then, of course, we've got the master track. I really don't use much of this at all, with the exception of putting pre or post. And what these pre versus post does for me is when I have a channel that I am turning up or turning down, I want it to turn up and turn down no matter where it is in the mix, which also includes if I turn down my acoustic track, well, it's still going to send to the delay if I have it set to post. So acoustic goes down, I have it set to pre, it doesn't have any delay effects. Versus if I did it in post, I turn that acoustic down, you're still going to hear the delay, which I don't know if you like that sound or not. I don't personally. So there's all my sends and returns. I'm a very big fan of using returns to help determine the emulation, as it were, of what all your outputs are going through on the back of your I/O. So this tells me all of these little guys more or less have their own little outputs. Some of these are stereo, some of these are mono. Like, for example, the pads are going out stereo, but they also share the same stereo output as the backing tracks or the background music. And as I'm going along, I'm still trying to meld everything into what I want it to do. But the easiest thing to do is having this representation in front of you, I feel, is very good, because that way you know, oh man, if I only have 4 outputs on the back of my machine, well, I'm going to have these 4 returns to show this is what's coming in and out. So that way, if you have to troubleshoot for any reason, you can easily see what's going on. Now, I still have the extra bit for delay. I have the extra bit for mixing down when I'm at home and I've got this I/O box sitting in front of me. But it's still pretty straightforward when it comes to my inputs and outputs. And that's it in a nutshell. I really don't have anything else that's going on. I started with one of Jake's templates up at the top here, and then I just made it into my own. And as you're going along with all this stuff, I feel that you could probably do that as well. And that is my crazy box. The few things that I'm probably going to be doing different going forward is I'm going to have another one of these. I'm just going to pick you up. Here we go. I want another one of these boxes. I think having a secondary one here would greatly help out for numerous reasons. One, I do know as we are moving along in our worship building and everything, we're upgrading a soundboard, we're upgrading the wireless mics, we're upgrading speakers and whatnot. I know over the course of time, I'm going to still want to record everybody as we're going along. And I do feel as having these guys on board, I can have a passive split coming into my box and catching the essentials of people. For example, if I get a secondary one of these, I can park that down here and make sure that the drums are mic'd and are coming into this box. So now I've got recordings of drums if I need them. Same thing with piano. I already have a patch or an insert for acoustic if I need it. It's all going to be in there. And I feel as though having a secondary one of these little guys is going to help me out. And then also, if I'm home, I can have that extra input-output that I use for the headphones dedicated so that I don't have to do the activate and deactivate that, muting that one channel that's up here. It'd be one less thing to deal with up in the front, and then I have something down here that kind of has its own listen in for everything that's going in and out of both of the boxes. The other thing I'm upgrading, as I said before, this Hall of Fame is going to get upgraded to a GFI Specular Tempest. It also has MIDI capabilities, which means any of the tap tempo stuff is going to be in sync. And then this can also change whether I have delay in a song or not, or how much or how little reverb I want to put into the guitar. And if I'm going to do any swells, I can have something automated there as well, so that I have those big ambient things that kind of come in and out as you need to. So that this is going to get upgraded to one of those for that reason as well. Let's see here. What else am I going to upgrade? This other little guy here, the Line 6, I believe that's called a Relay G10 is the full model. Yeah, there it is. It says right there off the top of my head or the front of the box. It doesn't matter. This little guy here is going to get upgraded to Sennheiser. What is it called? An XSWD, if I remember correctly. If I am mistaken, let's see here. You're going to take a little trip with me into my little goodie bags here. Here's my bag of holding. For those of you that are totally into the dice role-playing games and whatnot, let's see here. This is stuff that also comes along with me. Here's the Relay G10. That's what that looks like. I plug it in here like that, and it gets charged. These little cables, I have 2 of them, and this is just so I can put that in a pocket rather than have that be hanging off of a guitar and risk getting bumped. So there's that. This is a hard drive that I use to do live recording off of our in-ear. It is a Soundcraft UI24R is what we use for all of our in-ears. And then we have a split from it to the mains. These are all little power banks. And then this is what I use for in-ears. So Sennheiser makes these wonderful little guys. And let's see if it'll let's get out of this. There we go. Sennheiser XSWD. Now, this is originally for, I don't want to say field recording, or if you are a more video than audio person. So this is a nice little wireless pack that you can attach to a microphone. And then this is a nice little wireless pack that you can attach to a camera, and you can get a signal. You can get that audio signal there. Well, I just reversed the two. So now this is on my board, catching the in-ear monitor feed, And then this sits on my hip with the little belt buckle. And the only setback to this is that it's not quite loud enough to power the drivers of my in-ears. So I grabbed this little guy. And this is a FiO or FiO, however you want to pronounce that. And it's just a headphone amplifier. It's got its own little power supply, so you can see I could plug that in. It's wireless. Not wireless, I'm sorry. It's got a little charger in there. And all that does just brings things up to level. That was maybe about $20, $30. This XSWD system was probably around 200 plus, somewhere around there. And I got to tell you, it works wonderfully. And, you can see USB-C to power these bad boys up. I really like it, so much in fact that that's why I'm going to be upgrading this Line 6 to another version of these. Because if you can imagine having another one of these little guys in a pocket, and another one of these just, more or less kind of sitting right there. Because as it stands right now, this little guy ends up in this little nest, spiderweb, spaghetti, whatever you like to call it. So it always has one of these little guys plugged in at the bottom. And this is the in-ear feed up at the top. And that always feeds me my in-ears. So I just want to get another one of these guys and use that for my guitar wireless. And heck, while I'm at it, I might be able to get one of these because they make a legitimate microphone. So it's got an XLR input here. And you can use this as a wireless solution for microphones as well. Any microphone you want. Because it's just going to be an XLR instead of this aux jack in here. So you can have this on the back end of any of your favorite microphone. And like, what's not to like about that? I mean, I could throw a Beta 58 on here by Shure instead of using a proprietary by Sennheiser. If I really wanted to do something of that nature, I could put in anything. I can get one of those Neumanns that are absolutely incredible and put that on the back there. Neumann, whatever. Just yell at me in the comment section. All right, that's it. Putting that back where it belongs. Putting my toys away and going home. Thank you for listening to all of that craziness.